Georgian in Illinois, you know, with me talking about hooded vultures that that eat feces, you've asked a question relating to our buffalo kill with Jamie, saying would hooded vultures eat the stomach contents of the buffalo in an effort to reduce bacteria? And the answer to that question is no, Georgian. For the simple reason is that vultures are carnivores, or detritivores is the actual word for them, and they will gain no nutrients from grass, which is what the buffalo eats, but they stand the chance of gaining a little bit of nutrients from the meat which the lions eat. So they won't eat the stomach contents of the buffalo, they will eat the feces of the lion. It doesn't sound like a good trade-off, but that was a very good question. Really well done. Now we've got something interesting. We've got more vultures flying in here. More white-backed vultures. Once again, not telling me too much. I'm not seeing any vultures on the floor, but what they are starting to do is tell me whereabouts we can start looking. Now, that's a white-backed vulture, a bushmaster. He's coming in for the land, he or she. Big heavy birds, difficult for them to land, and whoa, instead of a nice graceful landing, smashes into the tree and almost knocks them all out. Now there are lots of trees around where we're sitting at the moment, myself and Andrew, where they could have landed, but they've chosen to land in the dead trees off to our right hand side. And this is giving me a triangulation, a start of a triangulation of where I should start looking. And we just need one more tree. So, hi Elise, you've asked a question, do vultures rely more on sight or smell? And it's a relatively easy question to answer. They rely more on sight, even though, and this is a curveball, I have heard of vultures responding to kills by smell. So I would say definitely, well, actually, let me retract my answer. It's not a very easy answer to give you, Georgia. And the easy answer would be, they only rely on sight because they fly so high in the air, how could they possibly smell anything? Which is what 99% of the books will tell you. But I have read reference material where in particular the Ruppel's vulture has been attracted to kills by smell. And further than that, I haven't heard or read anything that tells me how sensitive vulture smells are. I've read a lot about how vultures avoid freezing to death at the altitudes that they fly, and how their eyes are so perfectly adapted to seeing the way that they do, binocular vision and almost a magnifying glass effect in their corneas, but nothing about their smell. So Wendy in Kentucky. Hi Wendy. You've asked me a question, Wendy, that I can't really answer right now. What's the difference between New World vultures and Old World vultures? And that's a very good question. I don't actually know. I would love to hear from any of you that could tell us about what the difference is between New World and Old World vultures. I don't even know if I have a reference book, and I have a lot of reference books in the car here with me that could help me there. But good question. I would love to know the answer to that question. Peter in Switzerland is a new viewer as far as I know. Welcome, Peter. Welcome to the show. I'm very glad to be able to answer your question on what do vultures eat if there's not much food around. Vultures fly incredible distances, Peter. There was always food around somewhere. Some vultures in the Kruger National Park have been known to fly all the way to the Magaliesberg mountain roosting places some 600 or 700 kilometers away in a one-day round trip. And something will die in those areas that they are covering. So although a vulture might not eat every day, that's unfeasible for most animals in Africa. There's definitely enough animals on the hoof dying every day to keep them and their numbers intact. Now, what might not be immediately apparent is we've actually got a cone of vultures developing above this tree. I can see 4 vultures flying around, and I've just heard another tree squirrel that is busy calling. I actually think we need to start getting moving here and seeing if we can't find something before we lose the light. So I think while we are looking for whatever's attracted these vultures, we are going to go back to Jamie and you can enjoy what's happening with the lion kill. So enjoy that and we'll see you in a bit.
So guys, if you take a nice look into that dead tree just in the background, you'll see that we're also sitting with vultures and just having a bit of a chat about how they operate. I know that you guys have been talking at length with Steph about vultures and their role in the ecosystem. As you can see, the carcass has indeed been spotted, and it is in a very, very open area, so this does not surprise me at all that the vultures know that this is here. However, unfortunately for them, they will not be able to get anywhere near this carcass for now. With feeding angry lions on it, they will not stand a chance. And to actually go in and try and steal some food for now might be a little bit risky. All right, the lions will very vigorously defend a kill from any vulture, and they could actually kill them in the process. So the vultures in the area are starting to come through. The ones that you saw with Steph are probably congregating because of this kill. They will have seen it, but they also are savvy and they know that it's not going to be time to come down and try their luck just yet. And very often you'll see them sitting in the dead trees, and that's obviously for convenience. They're big lions, they're big birds, so it takes them some time to jump off and go through the trees. Now if we have a look here, I'm just going to move myself out of the way. We've still got the females eating. So it's a bit of a pity. This one lioness was giving us quite a show while you were chatting to Stefan. She was right inside the carcass. I could actually see her head through the hole. So very impressive feeding style that she's got going. Just to chat about vultures and their role in the ecosystem a little bit more. Obviously, the dynamic between those kind of scavengers is very, very important. They play a very important role in actually disposing of what's left of the carcass once the lions have finished, without leaving it to rot and collect bacteria. So they're basically the cleaners upper of this environment. And it's interesting to see the dynamic. In recent years, there has been quite a drop in vulture populations, and one of the theories that was put forward to me, which was something I'd never ever considered, is that hyena populations, have been reduced over the years, and hyenas, when they eat, they have that incredible jaw strength that they can actually crunch bone, and when they do that, they leave little bone fragments that the feeding vultures will actually come, especially females, and they go and they eat those little bone fragments because their beaks are not strong enough to really crack open the bones, and they snack on those to enrich their calcium so that when the females come to lay eggs, they've got enough calcium for nice solid eggs. So the theory that was put forward to me was that actually a decrease in hyena numbers can actually lead to a drop in vulture numbers, just because they're not getting that calcium that they need. It's an interesting idea, and of course there's always several factors in play, but it is one that it is a different way of approaching the question, and very, very interesting. And there's lots and lots of very valuable conservation groups doing work with vultures, tagging them, tracking them, and they really are incredible birds, the way that they can fly hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, which has led to this belief that actually they can, by sort of local cultures and customs, that they can actually see into the future, because people didn't understand that they just have the most incredible vision and how they found the carcasses. So it led to the belief that they were just predicting where they were going to be. So we've got that female nice and tucked in there, really having a good snack. Probably, I can't see exactly where her head is. Yeah, she's going for the very strong pelvic muscles, and probably will move up towards the muscles along the lower back, which are also very, very solid pieces of flesh there. Ah yes, she's got her teeth hooked around the hip bones, the pelvic joints, just getting all of the nice nutrients out of there. Okay, so what we have seen is that these lions are very happy to feed with each other. And now, when lions first kill something, if they're very hungry, there's a lot of aggression at a lion kill. When they first start to feed, especially if they've made a kill and they're hungry, there's a lot of aggression. I've actually seen a fairly well-fed male take an entire impala kill away from some rather hungry females. It's every lion for themselves. Even with the young cubs, they have to fight and kick and claw their way in to get a meal, and they will give each other some severe batterings. So it's always interesting to see. At the moment, these guys are pretty well fed. There's no need for much aggression at the moment, but things always change in the drop of a hat. They are very instinctive animals, so if they are feeling a little bit threatened with their food, then they might start to react aggressively. But at the moment, we have a really nice, peaceful family scene. So now the question is, when we come back here later this evening, because I'm not going to stay with these guys the whole afternoon, the question is, will the hyenas have actually come and found this? And Gil from Rhode Island, welcome, thank you for your question, would like to know basically at which point hyenas would they be able to steal this kill away from the lions, and sort of what the dynamics would have to be in that kind of scenario. So no lone hyena is going to even think about approaching a pride this big at the moment. A very large group of hyenas, we're talking maybe 8 hyenas or so, might be able and might think about coming to challenge them, but even so, I would, with a pride this size, with a young male, even though he is young, he has got a great deal of more strength on his side. So I do think that hyenas would definitely think twice about even coming in at this point, especially if I'm right and the Matimba males come and join this family scene. So for now, the hyenas are not going to come and try and take this kill away. Even with numbers around 8, they're not going to be able to chase a pride of lions that are this determined to defend their kill. There are other areas of Africa where you get much, much larger clan sizes, and they will challenge lone, smaller prides potentially with just females, and they will be able to chase them off kills, but this would probably not be the case at the moment. These lions will move off the kill when they're good and ready. And what you'll see now is if hyenas start to approach, The lions will all be very, very alert. As I said before, they look sleepy and docile, but it can change in a heartbeat. If they pick up on hyenas, they probably start to urinate, start to spread their scent around, just making sure that the hyenas know what's theirs and not to push their luck. I have seen circumstances where lionesses were, there was 2 lionesses at the time, they were chased off a zebra kill by hyenas, and a male was seen about 2 kilometers away at about half an hour before this all happened, and he obviously heard the vocalizations of the hyenas, of the lionesses, and he ran basically from where he was to where the lionesses were, moved very, very quickly to come and help defend, which explains why, you know, maybe yes, they do tend to take the lion's share of the meal, the males. They will fight off the females and eat their share first, or if with a big carcass they might share it, but the females need them around, or it's useful having them around for protection from things like hyenas, or potentially, obviously, other male lions who are coming in looking for new territories, and those male lions pose an incredible threat to young cubs. I'm just going to shift out of the way there. Maybe we can have a look at this lioness who's giving us quite the view, peeking through that hole there in the armpit. She's really getting tucked into that meal. It's quite an image. Lion's nose coming out. You can see she's just struggling for purchase at this carcass. She wants to get right in there, make sure that there's none of the really nice organs left. How cool is that? Amazing. Very interesting to see her nose poking out there. Quite happily getting tucked in and involved. Unfortunately, it is a really nice and warm day, and what we are seeing now, with the position of this carcass and everything and the lions here, is that it has brought a myriad of flies, and they've decided that sitting on us is just as nice as sitting on the lions and the dead buffalo. So you have to excuse me if I'm swatting them away. I haven't built up much of a tolerance. Not a huge fan of flies on my face, but they are around and they are causing some distress. So you guys will notice that even when she's nice and tucked in there, she's still coming out looking a lot cleaner than they were this morning. And Sarah from New York would like to know how that whole thing happened. You know, they were very, very bloody this morning, fresh kill, and now they're looking much, much cleaner. So the answer, Sarah, is that they would actually have groomed themselves. Most of the bloody areas of the carcass have been eaten or removed, and obviously now the blood is congealed with time and over the past few hours, so it's fairly solid at the moment, so there's not any fresh liquid blood to get all over them. And then what they will do is, after a nice big meal, they will groom themselves. They lick their paws, use them to clean their face, much in the way that you probably, if you have pet cats or if you've seen somebody's cat before, they clean themselves in a very, very similar way. And they will also allo groom, so they will clean each other as a way of sort of social bonding, just reaffirming, enforcing those bonds that are basically essential for their survival in life. So they will clean each other and they will clean themselves of all of the mess. And the reason that she's not coming out at the moment is the blood is now solidified and congealed. And she really is getting tucked in there. A lion's tongue is actually really, really fascinating. I've been fortunate enough to deal with a couple of lion dartings and transportations, and I've had an opportunity to feel the tongue of a lion that was under anesthetic. And they have the most incredible spines on them. You know, like a domestic house cat does, that very rough tongue, but I quite seriously mean they are almost spiny. And what they'll do is they'll use those incredible spines on their tongue to actually get rid of all of the hair. They start licking their fresh kills, get rid of the hair that's indigestible to them, and then break through the skin. And they can actually even use that tongue to get those last morsels of meat off the bone and use it to pull it off like that. So fascinating the way that their anatomy has developed in order to perfect the way that they get the most out of their meal. Very similar thing with leopard tongues as well. So a lot of your cats, it's a standard adaptation to their feeding methods. So I have a wonderful question from 7-year-old Helene, who is Bren's granddaughter. Welcome to the show, welcome to the Sunset Safari. It's great to have you here. Now Helene would like to know if lions will eat bones. The answer to that is yes, they will. They are powerful enough to crack some of the smaller bones, especially if they're digging into a meal straight away. They will swallow some of the smaller bones, and you will find those fragments in their scat. So in that feces, you will often find chunks of bone in lion scat. Which you will also find is that if they eat very young animals where the bones are still soft, they will also eat and chew those, especially with very newborn animals. They don't have the same crushing ability that hyenas do. So hyenas can actually really get into the solid pieces of bone, crack them open. They've got very powerful jaws and shoulders for muscle attachments. So they can really crunch and get into those bones, and their stomach acid is so strong that you won't find the same chunks of bone that you would find in lion scat. You will find in hyena scat, it's very smooth. That stomach acid has completely dissolved away all the remnants of bone chunks, leaving it just sort of white in color as it grows older because of all of the calcium. A very interesting question, and the answer is yes, they do eat bones, but to a limited degree. So Francie in Oregon would like to know what is going to happen to that incredibly thick skin and hide of the buffalo that this lioness is struggling to get around. Well, the answer to that is I've actually seen hides last for a very, very long time out in the bush. They sort of dry up in the sun, often become very leathery and tough. There are certain things that will eat it. Hyenas will chew on it to an extent, and they will try and eat some of it. But then again, you get your bacterias and your funguses that will settle in and start to break it down very slowly. But it is interesting because it is probably one of the pieces of the kill that has the potential to last the longest out here in the bush. But every part of this buffalo carcass will be utilized in some way as part of the nutrient cycle, feeding nutrients back into the soil, providing other animals with energy and food, and all kinds of potential places for things like horn moth larvae. So every part, nothing goes to waste out here. Okay guys, I'm just going to slightly shuffle the car around just so that we can get a different view of these guys, and then I want to hear from you guys if you would like to stay with these lions or if you would actually prefer to move on and see what else we can find, I will be coming back here later. I think it's going to be a very exciting scene. So just let me know. You can send your answers through on #SafariLive or email us at questions@wildearth.tv. I did have a little bit of a look around while you guys were with Steph, and I did find Junior. He's looking very happy with himself and very full and very contented. So we're just going to head across there, see if we can get a view. He's giving us a bit of a show, showing off that enormous belly. It's just here to my right. Let me see if I can get a good picture for you guys. Okay, so there we have a very contented, very fat Junior, looking happy and relaxed. And it's a very interesting thing that lions can spend up to 20 hours a day prone, either fast asleep or catnapping or just relaxing in the heat. And now Joyce from New Hampshire would like to know, how is it possible that lions can actually maintain that muscle tone in their fitness if all they do, or all they seem to do, is spend a great deal of time lying down and sleeping and being what looks to be lazy? That's a very interesting question, and one that I asked somebody years ago to do. Actually, was actually in a different situation. It was to do with captive cheetah. They weren't captive, they'd been rescued off farms, but they were placed in a boma temporarily just to get them used to the new environment so that they didn't go back to the farms that they'd come from. And I was asked that extended period of time, would this cheetah not lose its fitness and actually struggle to hunt once it was released? And apparently, from what I've learned, I'll have to read up more into it, but they have a very different muscle tone. And you'll be able to see, I mean, I've been hands-on with all of the big cats, and they do actually have very soft muscles. It's not what you would expect. You'd sort of expect the rock-hard, toned animal of the bush, but when relaxed, their muscles are very soft, and it is just a different muscle style. They don't lose fitness in the same way that we do. And again, with that very strong, fast metabolism, they can provide bursts of energy when they need it, but again, not sustained. So they're not fit animals, they're not long-distance runners or anything like that. It's short and very vigorous explosions of energy, and then they need to stop and slow down and calm down. But yeah, those fat bellies will be gone in about 2 or so days. But very interesting question, and one that I have asked before, and that I believe is the answer. They are just structured differently. Okay guys, if you'll excuse me for 1 second, I just need to communicate with the other game drives, because there are other people that would like to come and see, so I'm just going to let them know that they're more than welcome to come and join us. Yeah, stations, I'm on Lockworthy's in Gala, still Lalapanzi here, same position. I'm the only station here at the moment. Yeah, that's affirmative. I believe there was one other station responding, but still far out. Okay, copy that. You're more than welcome. Okay, copy. Alright, always very important to maintain some friendly relations with the neighbors. Okay, we all work towards the same goals. We all want to be be able to work together and plan our routes and share a sighting so that as many people as possible get to come and experience, which is where you guys are actually so lucky in that you can have this experience. And I think it is the most incredible concept that you could actually come with us on a live safari and see what we're seeing. And I love sharing that. It's one of my favorite things about the bush. The best time to actually be in the bush is when you can share its incredible wonders and miracles with other people. Okay, so guys, I think I'm actually going to shift my way out of here. We've got several vehicles coming now, but I promise you we'll be back, and we will be back with these guys when the sun is starting to go down a little bit cooler, and we can see if we get any interesting activity. Okay guys, these lions are not going anywhere. Oh, guys, thank you very much for your feedback. I know that many of you have suggested that we leave, which is exactly what we're doing. And let's go and have a look at Buffelshoek Dam. See if anything's crept down. I've heard some very interesting reports about Karula mating with another male. I'm still getting to know the various animals, but interesting that she appears to be mating with somebody. I'll let you know. I promise you I'll keep you updated, let you know as soon as I know. Although I'm sure some of you have already heard, you might know even more than I do. Okay, so as we travel down this road, I just want to let you guys know that we are going to cross across to Steph while I take my time to get to Buffelshoek Dam and figure out my way around for a start. So enjoy your time with Steph and have a look at the interesting feathered friend that he has.
Well, welcome back to me and what seems to be a dark chanting goshawk in a tree far away from where we're sitting at the moment. It was quite interesting, I must be honest with you. Myself and Andrew are busy following up on leopard tracks, and we've had vultures, as you saw a bit earlier with us, and we've had squirrels giving alarm calls, and I got into that thick bush. I was on foot. We couldn't find anything in the vehicle, so I got off and I was on foot, poking my nose under every bush, and all of a sudden Franklin behind me went crazy, and I thought, done, we've got the leopard, and ran back to the car and climbed into the driver's seat, and we tracked down the noise of these Franklin, the alarm calls of these Franklin, fully expecting a leopard to jump out of the tree, and lo and behold, what we found in the tree is a dark chanting goshawk that was trying to hunt some Franklin over here. So unfortunately no leopard, but we're still hot on the trail of the tracks that Scott left you with this morning, and I've just got a feeling that these cats are right here or somewhere in this area. Just something's telling me there's too much stuff going on in this little block for there not to be a large spotted predator here. And although I haven't seen any tracks in a long time, the last tracks I did have were right underneath where those vultures were sitting, literally underneath the same tree. I followed those tracks for a while. Unfortunately, I'm not a bushman, and it got quite hard next to that drainage line, and I lost the tracks. But I have a general direction of the tracks, and the nice thing with leopard tracks is that they tend to walk in a very specific linear fashion, and we've got tracks coming in and going out and going back in again. And I think that there's something happening around that drainage line. So we're going to be going back to that drainage line. I'm going to be driving ultra slowly up and down there and see if we can pick anything up in daylight. And then barring that, we're going to try with a spotlight when the sun goes down. But my gut feel tells me that there's something there. We've had squirrels giving alarm calls, we've had vultures sitting in the trees, we've had, well, what turned out to be a dark chanting goshawk hunting in the same area. And then we've got that little niggle in the pit of my belly that tells me that we've got something here. So we're going to go back down the road where we came from. Not very far from where we are now. We're only about 100 meters, just over 100 yards. I just heard the go-away birds busy shouting, but a quick glance at the tree where the dark chanting goshawk came from. The chanting goshawk is gone, and in all likelihood is what spooked the grey lories or the grey go-away birds. They're incredibly vigilant birds, and they've quietened down now again. Bush is starting to settle back into that rhythm that I'm so used to. I don't hear any more alarm calls. I'll just take out this quickly. It's always a good thing to listen. I do most of my tracking by ears. Other people use their eyes. I'm not good enough with that. But I think let's go back down. Let's comb every inch of that drainage line that we've got, and let's see what we can find. Now leopard, a lot of people think that leopard either hang around in rocks, live entirely arboreal lives in trees, or just live in drainage lines in thickets. But they're actually one of the most adaptable cats in the whole of Africa. And I've seen leopard in almost all environments. I even heard of a frozen leopard carcass found on the slopes of Kilimanjaro, the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, a few years ago. So incredibly adaptable cats, found from just outside Cape Town in the southern point of Africa, all the way to the eastern side of China, believe it or not. And in all temperate environments. They're absent from deep jungle, and I have seen them in the Kalahari, so Kalahari is definitely a true desert, and they definitely occur in the Kalahari. But they're absent from sand dunes, you know, the Namib Desert. They're absent from there. Other than that, they're probably one of Africa's one of the cats that have the most adaptable nature. Now I've got another alarm call. I'm just going to take out my earpiece and listen. Off to our left, we've got some pretty open bush. As you can see, doesn't look like much is there, but I'm catching as you can hear, or you might hear, there's just something that's not comfortable here. We've got a hornbill in the tree there. Now the hornbill itself is not giving an alarm call, but we've got another bird giving an alarm call. I'm just trying to find out where it is, so that I can tell you what bird it is. At the moment it sounds like a chagra. It's the ever-present fork-tailed drongo. And then we've also got a southern black tit. So fortunately a bit far away, the trees are a bit far away for me to actually show you what birds they are here, but nonetheless there are definitely some birds giving an alarm call. I've definitely got an itch about this area. Something is here that's not right. And we're going to be sticking around to see what is the story here. Still have the alarm call off to my left hand side. Sounds like a roller in actual fact. So what we're going to try and do is increase our audio a little bit so that you can hear what I'm hearing, hopefully. Now what I'm listening to is a harsh call far away. There was one there. There's another one there. There's another one there. That's an alarm call. It's not a typical call. I still don't quite know what bird that is. We've got a rattling cisticola. We've got go-away birds in the far distance. The noise is a hornbill. Southern yellow-billed hornbill. Some Aramark babblers. So we've still got that hornbill. We've got a drongo in the fray. We've got the Aramark babblers. Fork-tailed drongo. That's another fork-tailed drongo. Aramark babblers. Isn't technology wonderful, folks? You can actually hear this. Ah, there's the source. So we just found out what was causing the commotion, and it was that dark chanting goshawk again. So he literally flew up from where we were. He's made a big circuit around in the bush where we couldn't see, and he first gave that roller a bit of a fright, and then he was giving the hornbill a little bit of a go, and then the fork-tailed drongo joined the fray, and then the Aramark babblers, and boom, out of the bush pops the dark chanting goshawk that we saw. And I'm so glad you got to listen to that with me. It was so interesting seeing or feeling the energy of the birds moving from our left-hand side all the way to our right-hand side. And as the birds started calling, bang, we saw the little predator bash out of the bushes there and fly away. Now, some very clever people, I'm told, have actually started to decipher this language that the birds are speaking. And I found it a fascinating thing. You know, as the years go by, I have interests that wax and wane, and at the moment, this bird language, what is the bush telling us, is absolutely incredible. Just by sitting and listening, and taking time to listen. Now, that call of that roller, I'm actually going to store that call in my memory banks, and I'm going to put it with the other calls that I was hearing, that high-pitched shriek of the fork-tailed drongo, that babble of the Aramark babblers all together, and I'm going to keep that in my memory bank aligned to a dark chanting goshawk or to a little predator sipiter of the same size, and see if I can recreate that at a different time. And that'll allow me to build up a data bank or a knowledge base of what the bush is telling me. And I'm going to do similar things when I see birds reacting to leopard and to lion, and see if I can start decoding this language. And Meg, I'm so glad that you've enjoyed that with me. As I'm busy sitting over here, the birds that have flown away in fright of that little dark chanting goshawk have actually started to return to their purchases. We've got a crested barbet that's returned from the floor where he was hiding back onto the branch. I've seen the fork-tailed dry. He's just flown away. He's out there. He's come up on the other side, but not to worry. He's just gone back into the bush there, probably to carry on it this afternoon. But the interesting thing with this bird language is it's not only bird calls that is being deciphered, it's actually the behavior of these birds associated to the calls. So what we were seeing there is cresting and troughing. or in actual fact troughing and then cresting, because this predator was flying in the undergrowth. The birds went from sitting in the bush and calling to the ground and calling, waiting for the predator to go past, and then going back up to their perch with that specific call. The next time I hear that, even if I don't see what's causing it, I'll know. If I see birds going from the floor or from the bush down to the floor and giving a warning call like that, I mustn't look on the floor for a leopard. I must be looking into the air, and that will help me determine what's causing the commotion. So we're going to carry on going. I still have a feeling there's still a lot of energy. There's still a lot of energy in this area, in this valley. We've still got the leopard tracks to follow up on. We've still got those vultures that were sitting in the tree, and we've still got the squirrel that was busy calling a bit earlier. So it's not finished yet. Sorry, Tara, I lost you there completely. So, we've managed to get some answers to a question that was posed a little bit earlier from Joyce, Matthew and Jane. Thank you so much. I've actually just learned something incredible at the moment, and you've given us the answers for the old world versus new world vultures. And the answer is, and thank you very much for this, that through convergent evolution, old world vultures and new world vultures have arrived at the same point where they're looking after the environment and cleaning up after themselves. But new world vultures are vultures that have a sense of smell as keen as their sense of sight, whereas the old world vultures only rely on their sense of sight. Can you believe that? So thank you very much for that, that little bit of information. I constantly try and learn things and some things new, and thank you for helping me with that. Once again, I just have to marvel at the fact that we can help one another learn about the bush we're driving in, all the way from the Kruger National Park here in South Africa, Djuma Private Game Reserve, Djuma Narathusa. And I really have to say thank you for that. That's really nice. Now, off to my left-hand side, we've got the squirrel that was giving us the alarm call just now. He's completely relaxed at the moment, or she is completely relaxed. I haven't quite decided just what yet. And that common tree squirrel is busy eating the seed pods of a bush willow. That particular seed pod is called the samara. It's a four-winged pod that is dispersed by wind and water. And the little squirrel is busy collecting, have a look at that. Collecting these samaras, chewing their incisors on the bottom jaw, extracting the seed, which is also like a full. So you may have noticed that at a point there was a little in any of these. Now, we might be storing them in his cheek pouches, which might account for why he's eating them so fast. I can't actually see if his cheek pouches are full. They don't look full. It looks like he's busy swallowing them. Should I say she? In actual fact, it's a female tree squirrel. Wowza. Have a look at how dexterous those hands are. That is incredible. So, I knew it was a female because these particular types of mammals, their testicles are incredibly enlarged, almost out of proportion with their body, and clearly evident with binoculars or at the zoom that you've got now. I can't see any evidence of an enlarged scrotum and therefore I've deduced that it's a Mrs. or Miss tree squirrel rather than a Mr. Definitely powering through these Samaras. Doesn't look like the cheek pouches, although keep an eye on those cheek pouches. Let's see if she's busy storing up those seeds, in which case she will make her way off to her larder and go and deposit them there. Now, humans have been using these Samaras from this particular bush willow and making tea from, not the seeds, from the coverings that she's so casually disregarding. And I am told that they are, or have, cancer prohibiting agents. I have drunk some of the Samara tea. It's a little bit bitter, nothing too bad. I haven't got cancer just yet, so preventative maintenance there couldn't hurt. Have a look at how dexterous she's moving through those branches. I mean, isn't it just wonderful? Now they've got 5 toed feet on their front feet, and although they don't have opposable thumbs, it's definitely 5 toes. They are incredibly dexterous. I mean, just have a look. She's selecting a branch, bending the branch to her, picking off the Samara with her claws, putting it in her mouth, turning it around, opening up the Samara with her bottom incisors, extracting the seed, discarding it, and doing it all again. I'm going to count the next time. Let's see, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. Well, she's taking her time with this one. She's sitting at 15 seconds already. Girl, you're slowing down. That was a lot quicker. She's maybe battling with this one. Now, tree squirrels are part of the rodent family, which means that their lower incisors never stop growing. She has to use her bottom incisors, otherwise they will grow out of her mouth and make her look funny. So for their entire lives, they wear down their chisel-like incisors on their bottom jaws, keeping them nice and sharp. Let's count now. Let's see when she gets to the next cluster. Hey, 1,000. No, still not. Still just testing. Have a look at that. Put it in her mouth. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. Once again, 10 seconds of reach. Just powering through that. Have a look at that. Turning it around and around and around, biting off those wings. Now extracting that seed. Eating it. So Linda has sent through an email, and hi Linda, you're asking why do squirrels like this and birds give alarm calls if they can be safely hidden away in trees? I mean, how is a leopard ever going to get that squirrel? The best answer that I can give you right now is the fact that because leopard prey on squirrels, they will and are predators of tree squirrels, they will take the opportunity to shout or to warn other animals of leopard being there. It's just one of these ingrained safety features that they have. They, in particular squirrels, really shout out about predators. Predator is there. So an alarm call from a squirrel sitting at the top of the tree on an exposed branch looking down, most definitely a predator on the floor. A squirrel diving out of a tree and getting into the thickest brush possible, even hiding on the ground, looking up into the sky and giving an alarm call is definitely there from an aerial predator, a bird. Right now, quite safe, feeding on the Samaras, keeping her eyes vigilant. I, in actual fact, have only ever seen once a squirrel getting eaten by a bird. So Jenny has commented quite rightly, and well done on the observation there, Jenny. You've noticed that squirrels, when they climb down a tree, actually turn their feet backwards and hang from their nails. And this is exactly what these tree squirrels can do. They can twist their feet backwards and hang off of their sharp claws. To be honest, even sitting here where I am right now, I can't even imagine how they get that right without thinking that they have the ability to twist their ankle in some way. But yes, very, very good observation that they, when hanging upside down, descending a tree, or even when they're just turning around to have a look at, they quite often hang from their nails. I suppose it would be similar to a bat in actual fact. Bats also hang from their nails. And I can only imagine it would be something to do with a very, very flexible ankle. If you think about bending your ankle, pointing your toes as much as what you can to a point where your toenails dig into a tree and then hanging upside down by your toenails, that would be very similar to how the squirrel is getting it right. Hats off to her, man. Tyler, all the way from Ohio, and he was only 12 years old. Hey, Tyler, has just asked me what's the difference between a warning call and birds twittering. And that's quite a good question, because essentially there is no difference. It's just one form of communication after another, but the energy and the intensity definitely differ. And we can pick up on that. We can pick up when something is giving energy alarm call pitched at a note that we actually respond to, whereas birds twittering is a communication call for whatever reason, calling a mate, defending a territory, just deciding to sing at the sun or sing at the sky, and is definitely more melodic. It's not as intense. It doesn't give you this edgy, panicky feeling. So very good question there, Tyler. Well done, and keep on watching and keep on coming up with those questions. You might even catch me out with one of them one day. So as you can see, the sun is set on the squirrel. Where we first started to watch the squirrel, the sun was actually highlighting her, and now the sun is actually highlighting way down the tree while she's busy picking off almost every single samara on the branches that she's almost finished. That branch, it was full of samaras when we first started to look at her. Have a look at that. 1 foot on one branch and 1 foot on the other. So, we're going to carry on our search, and I'm sure Jamie has got an update for you on what she's been watching and what's been happening at that lion sighting. Myself and Andrew are going to carry on down the road, and we will catch up a bit later for an update.
Welcome back, everybody. I hear you've been having quite the discussion about alarm calls and having a look at that squirrel, having a great meal. I was desperately looking for a fork-tailed drongo to show you so that I could have a bit of a chat with you about, a little bit more of a chat with you about alarm calls, because that's actually what I've been doing while you've been with Steph. I had a stop off at Buffels Hook Dam, sat and listened nice and quietly, just to see if the bush was going to tell me anything about what was going on. And that's actually one of my favorite things to do in the bush, is to go walking, because you really get to experience and to listen and to hear, and more often than not the bush will actually tell you what's out there and what's going on. And the reason I was looking for the drongo is because they are such fascinating little birds and incredible mimics, and what they've learned to do is actually to work with meerkats in the Kalahari, and they've been documented as having imitated the meerkat's alarm call so that they can get the meerkat to drop whatever they've been foraging, whatever insect. If they've got something nice and juicy, they imitate that emergency alarm call, and the meerkat drops their food and dashes off into the burrow, of course leaving the drongo to go in and take the meal. Ooh, little Inyala jumping through in front of me. There we go. Got a little bit of a gap. Hopefully this little lamb will stick around. Hi, little guy. Stay where you are for a second. Very sweet little youngster. One of my favorite antelopes to see out here. They really are stunningly beautiful with that combination of stripes and spots on the rear end. Really beautiful little creatures, and amazing to see the difference between the male and the female. Huge, tremendous, actually the largest example of sexual dimorphism that you'll see in the antelope species. Very, very interesting. The male is much larger, much darker, very shaggy fur, and big horns. Beautiful antelope. Part of the spiral horned antelope family. Okay, so our little Nyala lamb has disappeared off, so I'm going to carry on. If you remember, I was talking about the incredible drongo that imitates alarm calls of other birds. And what is so, of other birds and also the meerkat, but what is so incredible about that is that meerkat have actually got a range of different alarm calls. And the drongo has learned which one means to actually drop your food or snake here, come and mob. The little birds learned to use the system, and an area that we used to do quite a lot of manual labor, so we used to go and create clearings in one of the reserves, and while I was working there, every single week we would get a drongo that would come and follow us in the same way that they follow big herds of animals, looking for all of the insects or whatever crickets or things that we might disrupt and disturb in the grass. I have no idea if it was the same bird that came back every week, but I would like to think so. So, Buffels Hook Dam is a little bit quiet, so we're just going to travel now, slowly make our way down to the Djuma, look around, see what's around and about. So guys, I know that you're having a couple of signal issues. Some of you might be experiencing them. Very sorry about that. I know that our tech geniuses will be working on that and hopefully get it all. I know that Steph mentioned to you that an update about leopards being seen. Unfortunately, it was tracks, but also it appears to be outside of our area that we traverse in. So we'll keep an eye out. You never know. There might be a leopard hanging around here, but unfortunately we won't be following up on that particular update. Christina in Pittsburgh, on the subject of alarm calls, would like to know whether the alarm calls might differ in terms of, from birds and from squirrels, and whether they're actually alarming because of a snake rather than another type of predator. There will be a difference, probably a discernible difference for the animals themselves. I'm sure that there is. With squirrels, I generally don't hear much variation, but you will hear different levels of intensity depending on what the threat is. So squirrels have a pretty standard alarm call. It sounds a bit like a witch cackling to me. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, you'll get different intensity levels and different durations depending on what kind of threat they're actually facing. And I'm sure that there are studies into the variations that maybe aren't immediately discernible to people who are listening with a slightly uneducated ear. But I do know that scientists are looking into the different alarm calls and whether there are actually more than we realize in response to different things. And that makes sense for the animals to have a different alarm call for different things. With things like vervet monkeys, meerkats, it's very easy to tell the difference, and there are people who know exactly now at least what some of their alarm calls mean. And it works out in terms of your survival if you can actually you can tell and warn other animals what the threat is and where they should be aware. Because a squirrel being frightened of a snake that's in the tree should have a very different response to, say, a squirrel that's frightened because of a bird of prey, like the goshawk that you saw. So yes, I'm sure that there is a difference, not necessarily immediately discernible from some of the animals, but I'm convinced that there's variations in sound. Oh, the flies are coming back. I think we might be starting to see the end of winter. Well, I always say that in the middle of July and then it gets really cold. But it does feel a lot warmer. There's something of spring in the air. And the days are getting nice and long. It was very, very warm when I started this afternoon. But of course, it brings back things like flies and all the other wonderful haws that we get in this area. Hi James, welcome to the Sunset Safari from Kansas City. And James would like to know a little bit about my background. He wants to know if it's true that I'm a qualified walking guide and whether or not I'll be doing walks for WildEarth. That is indeed the plan. I am a qualified walking guide. It is actually the area that I would say I've invested most time in over the past few years. I've spent as much time as possible on foot in the bush, whether it's tracking things or whether it's taking guests out on walks or researchers. Is my personal favorite way of experiencing the bush, because I feel like you see and experience a whole range of things that you wouldn't necessarily realize when you are driving in a vehicle. So hopefully, yes, that is the plan. I would very much like to be able to take some of the walking safaris, get some wonderful sightings for you guys. And of course, everything is different on foot. Animals respond very differently to a human bipedal stance. They have learnt over thousands of years that shape, and they associate that shape with one of their top predators. So animals reacting to vehicles is a very, very different response to animals responding to people on foot. Now I've got a wonderful little clan of one of my favorite animals. Very, very sweet. And maybe if we're nice and quiet, we might actually be able to pick up on their little communication calls. They're all over the road here to my left and right. So I'm just going to be quiet for a second. Let's see if we can hear them calling to each other. Okay. Alright, so we don't seem to be able to hear them. They're scurrying off foraging late night, probably on their way back to their burrows. And this is the little dwarf mongoose, and it is one of my favorite animals to stop and see. They are simply fascinating little creatures, smallest predator that we have in this area, and really interesting social structures. They have an alpha pair, and the alpha pair will be the one that breeds, and the rest of the family or the rest of the group of mongoose is there to actually support and help out that alpha pair. And they'll leave their youngsters, some of the older youngsters, in charge of the younger babies. Really fascinating little social dynamic. Beautifully highlighted in the sun there. And one of my favorite things about dwarf mongoose is that they're actually very curious little creatures, and you find that if you get groups that are used to having their burrows on the side of roads, they get very habituated to people. And if you're lucky and you sit nice and quietly for long enough, they'll actually come out and have a closer look at what you are and what you mean. There's a little guy just peeking out over the top of that bolster. Naturally very curious little creatures. And I have had them come right up to my car tires before. Fortunately, it requires sitting very still and very quiet for quite a while before they find themselves brave enough. And mongoose are always interesting because there are some mongoose, such as the slender mongoose or the white-tailed mongoose, that lead very solitary existences. And then you get mongoose such as the dwarf mongoose and the banded mongoose that actually entirely reliant on these great family groups. And beautiful shot there with the sun slowly going down. So I know that there's a bit of a fierce debate going on about the plural of mongoose. I have always naturally said mongooses, but I do not think that's correct. It's definitely not mongoose. It's not like the birds where you have a goose and then geese. I think the plural you'll probably find is just mongoose, like in the same way that I can't think of a good example right now, of course. But it is a word that works as both the singular and the plural. The group of mongoose, not mongooses. But a great question, and one that I've never truly known the answer to, if I'm totally honest. But yeah, totally fascinating. One of my favorite little animals to see. And they have the most incredible way of determining the alpha dominance system that they have in their clan. So instead of fighting it out, as a lot of animals do for dominance, they actually have a very serious grooming competition where they groom each other, as in licking each other, cleaning each other's fur until one simply cannot do it anymore, and they collapse exhausted and covered in saliva. So really interesting little animals, fun to watch, nice little dynamic that they have going on. And they gave us a great show there, but they've all scurried off. I think it's home time for them. The sun is getting lower and there's a bit of threat in the evening, so they're going to go scurry off probably into an abandoned termite mound and settle down for the evening. Off into the distance. It's a question about whether with the alpha system, whether they would actually, the alpha pair would lead the way towards the burrow or determine the foraging direction. I have to be honest, I don't really know the answer to that question. I think probably, but I also think that it would, the general group movements will determine, sorry guys, bumping through. Sorry, Jandre. Yeah, the general group movements will determine, and I'm sure the alphas have some kind of say in it, but I don't know exactly. And they do have a wonderful alarm call system. I have always been a little bit useless at imitating alarm calls, but they do make a sort of a sound whenever they're alarmed. Okay. Quite a beautiful scene we've got going on here, just as the colors are getting really, really lovely. Nice big group of male buffalo. This doesn't look like a breeding herd to me, it looks like a nice collection of males. They're just spending the day here, chilling. I'm sure that some of you who are regular viewers will have picked up on these guys already at our Juba Dam Cam. Wow. It's a considerable amount of urine. So just slightly off to the left is one of my favorite birds. Here we have him. The saddle-billed stork. Definitely one of the most striking storks that we have out here. That incredible combination of red and yellow on the bill with the black, and then the black and white plumage. Absolutely stunning birds. Here we can see and some beautiful evening colors coming through on the water as well. So buffalo to me are very interesting animals. They very seldom do something all that active. Usually when you see them, they're sort of standing chewing the cud, or if it's nice and warm they might be wallowing in the mud, easing their way through the day. However, I have seen some fascinating buffalo interaction that involved a pregnant female that went into labor, I think a little bit too soon. Usually the females move off when they are pregnant. They go off and they give birth on their own. And I actually saw an example of why they do this. Her water broke in front of me, and as she was going into labor, one of the younger females in the herd went up to investigate. And apparently this is something that is actually quite common in buffalo. It's also seen in cows. It's something that's sort of known as pregnancy hysteria, and the scent of the hormones and everything involved with the labor actually produced an overexcited response from this younger female that was investigating, and she started sticking her horns in the stomach of this poor female, forcing her up onto her feet. And by the end result was the entire herd of buffalo actually chased her around until eventually she actually came and sought refuge next to my car, strangely enough. I think she realized that it was a safe point because the other buffalo weren't so keen to go right up to me. You'll be happy to know, however, that she did survive and the calf was born happy and healthy, but a very interesting example of why the females go off on their own. There we go, beautiful visual of that saddle-billed stork catching possibly some freshwater mussels, but maybe little fish, possibly some sort of vegetable matter in the water, but I'm sure he's after little crustaceans and mussels and small fish. So this is probably one of my favorite times of day. It's probably my second favorite time of day. My favorite is just before sunrise, when the bush is all new and exciting and you never know what the day is going to hold. That connects very strongly to me with childhood memories of going out to Kruger and going into the bush. Very exciting. But this time of day is also particularly beautiful, and it's always different depending on the season. In the winter you get the nice crisp coolness coming through. It's fresh and breezy at the moment, and that's absolutely, you get these wonderful colors. That's beautiful. You can see why they're at least one of my favorite stalks. Using that incredibly specialized bill just to sift through the mud and see what he can find. Those bills might look very hard and sort of solid, but they do have actually an incredible sensory capacity. So they can actually feel their way through using their bill in the same way that something that probes the grass or the trees, the woodpeckers or the hoopoes and the ibises of the world, they all have incredible sensors on the end of that beak. So I was just sifting through and having a feel around, finding something to eat. Oh, got something good there. So it's really, really nice just to sit in silence and enjoy this. And maybe we can just listen nice and quietly to the sounds of the bush. Not too many birds calling. However, just up and to my right, as we were watching the stalk, I noticed there was a fish eagle that flew in across from the dead tree in front of me to up into the tree on my right. A truly iconic bird, and one that the call is often associated with African river systems. He's sitting up in the top of that tree just there. Okay. Beautiful, iconic bird. That gorgeous white chest and incredibly fascinating specialized hunters. So while we were sitting there nice and quietly, not too much in the way of bird calls, I picked up, at least we've got the arrow marked babblers babbling away, calling all together, making a very, very noisy sound. And then the crested francolins were also alarm calling. Sorry, not alarm calling, just calling the standard sort of dusk chorus for them, letting everybody know that it's time for bed, this is where they are, and they're off to sleep. I caught a little bit of a starling call, and then the Cape turtle dove was also calling a little bit in the background. I'm not sure if you guys could hear that, but a really nice way to spend a late afternoon, just enjoy the sounds of the bush. So, and the colors as well, truly spectacular colors on the water, bringing out the birds beautifully. However, I think that maybe we are done with these buffalo at this dam. So let's start moving off and we can just have a look and see what we can find. You never know. So, continuing the conversation that we were having earlier about my experience in terms of walking in the bush, Jimmerlin would like to know what my scariest experience has been. Welcome, Jimmerlin. It's great to have you here on the Sunset Safari, and thank you for your questions. I happened to be walking in an area that I was not very familiar with, not where I was used to walk to. I wasn't working there at the time, but I was doing a walk. And I was walking with just a group of guides. There were 3 of us, and we were actually looking for prospective hyena dens, and we bumped into a black rhino, and it charged us, and she charged us. She ran away from us initially, but she didn't go as far as we thought, and what they often do is they often loop around to be downwind of you. So she looped us without us realizing, and had actually only in reality run about 30 meters from where we were standing. And I think at that point, as we walked straight back towards her, she decided she had just had enough, and we were obviously following her. And I have been charged by quite a few things, but I've never been in a truly critical situation where I have not expected the animal to actually turn from the charge. But I must say I genuinely thought she was going to follow through with that. She turned at 2 meters. We measured it afterwards, so I'm not just exaggerating for the sake of the story. It was genuinely 2 meters. And it was also incredible to see, not that I registered it at the time, but how efficiently she managed to turn. Alright, so it's always useful to remember that big animals might look lumbering and a bit clumsy, but they are most definitely not. She basically turned in the space of her body and ran off in the opposite direction, with much huffing and puffing and snorting. I will truly admit that I was genuinely scared in that moment. I didn't think that anything was, we were walking unarmed, and obviously we would never have wanted to use a weapon on them anyway. So yes, that's probably been my scariest moment so far. And it's also something that I learned a great deal about from that one encounter. So scary, but useful in terms of learning curves. Just cruise down to the dams. It's really fascinating for me to actually have a look at how different the bush is here. And it's always interesting because where I was working at previously is not that far away from here. It is a much younger reserve than the Sabi Sands, but it's very interesting to see the difference in growth forms, and obviously that's all to do with soil type and all the various topography of the land, the climate of the land, the rainfall levels. But in reality, I was not far as the crow flies, and yet we certainly didn't get these amazing bright green wari bush thickets, really stunningly beautiful. As much as I'd like to stay with you guys and enjoy this evening, your colours are beautiful, I'm actually going to pass you on to Steph, who's doing some more alarm call listening, and I will be back with you a little bit later. I'm actually going to start making my way back towards the lions just as it's getting dark, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we see a little bit of action from that side. But for now, let's go and see what Steph is hearing.
Well, welcome back to Andrew and myself here. What looks like just a sunset has happened, and I'm told that you've had a fantastic saddle-billed stork sighting in Buffelshoek. Oh, I think it was Buffelshoek Dam or Djuma Dam with the sun right behind it. Awesome. Myself and Andrew, we haven't given up. We've been quite tenacious here in this drainage line with this leopard, and I went for another walk. Vultures were actually flying out of the tree around me, waiting for me to go past, and then landing in the same tree again. So we went round the block, and coming back to around about where we saw the vultures the first time, we suddenly listened to a francolin giving an alarm call. And the francolin stopped only about 2-3 minutes ago inside the drainage line that's just off to our left-hand side, and I can't hear it again. It's definitely not calling again. I can't see anything. Now, the last tracks that I had of that leopard were actually coming right to where you're looking right now. Just on that bank, leopard tracks heading exactly in that direction. Very, very thick bush. As you can see, quite difficult for a car to get in there, so definitely not somewhere we're going to drive around in looking for anything. So I was in there on foot, looking for any further sign, you know, and things that trails guys would look for would be drag marks, would be more footprints. I found one leopard track. I found what I thought was a drag mark, but in actual fact it was just an elephant had walked past and grabbed a branch and was dragging a branch with it as it walked, just as a toy, I suppose, and was leaving this perfect. And I thought, wow, we've got a drag mark, and then it only ended after a meter in the middle of an open area, and I felt like a bit of an idiot. But it was an old one, and I couldn't see the elephant tracks. I only knew it was elephant because there was a lot of sign of elephant around the area from almost at the same time that the drag was left. Now here Jamie was giving you some talks about her experience as a trails guide. I must be honest that trails guide is something close to my heart as well. Being a trails guide, or being a guide that is able to operate on foot in a dangerous game area, giving an experience on foot is what I enjoy doing. Now, you might think it's quite dangerous looking for a leopard. I don't have any weapon with me, but I almost prefer it that way. It makes me more cautious. Having a weapon definitely is needed if you are wanting to preserve life, and definitely if I get into a tight spot, I'm going to wish I had one. But when I'm around on my own, Andrew was on the vehicle, when I'm around on my own, I tend to be more cautious than I am daring, and I take my time going through the bush. I avoid very thick places, I use my senses, I use my sight, I look for tracks, I look for drag marks, I watch those vultures, I listened with my ears, but I never found anything, to be honest. I did bump into a herd of impala in there, but nothing with spots. They're giving me a hard time this time. But I'm not dismayed. It's just a challenge. Leopard are incredibly difficult to see, even though we're so lucky here at Djuma to see a lot of leopard, and the Sabi Sands in general is brilliant for leopard. As far as I'm told, some of the best leopard viewing in the world happens right here. There are a few other places where leopard is good. The South Luangwa National Park is fantastic for leopard, and Scott was busy telling me about a park somewhere in Kenya that I can't pronounce or can't remember right now that's also fantastic for leopard. But definitely the Sabi Sands is one of the better places in the world to view leopard. I suppose it would be the 60 or 70 years that people have been living in the Sabi Sands and probably practicing sound safari practices and policies, that these animals have realized that we're not here to hurt them, we're not threatening them in any way, from a vehicle at least anyway, and have settled down. Many generations of leopard have been taught by their mothers that as long as the vehicle behaves itself and the people on the back of the vehicle behave themselves in an ordered, similar way, they've got nothing to be scared of. I'm just taking the time to listen to the bush around me. And it's a wonderful time of the evening as the hot air that was rising throughout the day starts to sink as it cools down. You get it compressing the air that it's falling onto, and it creates this very stable layer close to the ground. And birds and animals have actually learned to use that layer to bounce sound off of it and down again. And you quite often find that this time of the night you have a lot of sound coming at you from all over the bush. What I'm listening for is more alarm calls, more Franklin giving alarm calls, more squirrels giving alarm calls, maybe even that impala herd giving an alarm call. I don't hear anything. It's got a drongo that's busy mobbing something in the tree in front of us, but they don't mob leopard, they'll get munched. We're going to carry on down the road, see what we can find. I'm going to go around the block again, and we're going to be pulling out our spotlight soon and see what we can see. And at the moment my plan is to visit the two dams that are in this area and to drive up and down this drainage line and see what we can pull out. That's my plan. Hi Debbie, and you've just asked me a question on Twitter that I have to say a resounding yes to. Have I ever encountered tracks that make absolutely no sense to me? And I'd have to say that probably happens on a daily basis, to be quite honest with you. I get confused by tracks all the time. You know, tracking and the art of tracking and the skill of tracking and trailing is something that you develop over years. And even though I've been doing this for 16 years and I've been following around animals for 16 years, I still get confounded by tracks, where they're going, what they're up to. Today, for instance, we had leopard tracks going up the road, we had leopard tracks going down the road. Which way was the leopard going? Now, normally what you do is you'd follow the sequence of the tracks and you'd wait to see which track prints on top of the other one to give you an idea of which one is the fresher track in the direction. We'll have a look here. I'm just going to go around the corner a little bit. Andrew's just pointed it out over my shoulder. Exactly where we've been seeing these vultures the entire day. We've now got a tree draped in vultures. Literally right across from where we saw the vultures, the two hooded vultures and the white-backed vulture. And almost in exactly the tree we were having a look at the squirrel in just now, to be quite honest. So there we have a hooded vulture, a couple of hooded vultures in actual fact, two, probably the same two that have been hanging around this area the whole day. And the rest are white-backed vultures roosting in a dead leadwood tree with a leopard orchid on the right-hand side. Now, the trick would be to have a look at their crops to see how full they are, to see if they've been eating. I can't see that they've been eating. Their crops are not empty, but definitely not full. They're not gorged. Another hooded vulture just flew in. So Kathleen has just asked an interesting question. Good evening, Kathleen. She said, do vultures see on the side of their head or peripherally and almost 360? Or do they see binocularly like we do, where the eyes are on the front of their head? And perhaps what we could do is have a look to see which one of these vultures could give us the answer to that. Perhaps the one right at the top. Let's see if we can use this fantastic zoom that we've got. You'll notice that there'll be a slight jump in the picture. That's just the zoom kicking in, one of this punched zoom. And you'll notice that those vultures have eyes that are next to one another, not on the side of their head. But it's quite tough to see. I must be honest, it's dark already. It's not the easiest thing to see. But I'll give you the answer in any case. The vultures have binocular vision. They see out of the front of their head, similar to what we do, and not peripherally. And that's because they're not hunted by anything. They don't need to look behind their head for anything in particular. And what they can do is utilize that binocular vision to scan the bush underneath them. And look for prey on the ground. Now they will roost here for the rest of the night. They're not going to be going home. They're not going to be going anywhere. There's one white-backed vulture that just flew off in search of a different roosting place. I am still convinced that there's something hiding around here somewhere with something dead. Isn't that sort of the quintessential shot? You have some vultures in a tree with a skylight behind them. And myself and Andrew have now come back into this area. We're just doing loops around this area. I'm really convinced that there's something here. I've crisscrossed, I've almost looked under every single bush that's here. I haven't been able to find anything. And for all my efforts, I'm afraid I'm just going to be covered in tick bites rather than show you a leopard kill. But now we're going to take out our spotlight. It's getting to a point where it's getting dark enough for us to take out the spotlight and for us to shine with the spotlight and hopefully pick up that reflection from the tapetum, which is that layer of light reflective crystals at the back of the eye of some of the animals out here. And leopard definitely have a tapetum. And we're going to carry on going. So we've just got actually Diana, one of the other guides in the area, coming up behind me. I just want to give her an update of what we've actually been doing on this road. So if you'd excuse me, I'm just going to have a quick chat to one of our guides, one of our colleagues, and just let her know what we've been doing the whole afternoon. Hey Diana. Hi. No, come in. Just going to have a quick chat to her and tell her what we're up to. Hi Diana, how are you? Good. Hello everybody. So we've been here pretty much the whole afternoon trying to find what these vultures are sitting here for. There's leopard tracks quite fresh coming into the drainage line, but on that side of the drainage line. I lose them just on the other side of this thicket.
Earlier today, we had a kudu carcass just at the back there.
Okay.
We just don't have anything on it.
Well,
It's really pulled in, so we can't even see it anymore.
oh really? So inside here?
Yeah.
Well, it shows you what a good tracker I am if I can't even find it, eh? So Diana's just told me that she's actually found a kudu carcass here a bit earlier. They tracked in on these tracks, and there's a kudu carcass that is inside the bushes, literally just in this area over here, with leopard tracks going to it and coming from it, but no leopard. But now that it's getting a bit darker, who knows? Do you want to show me where it is? Good, we'll follow you in. Awesome. So we're going to be shown what, or where at least, the kudu carcass is, and hopefully we're lucky and there's something sitting on it. So we're going to let Diana show us where it is. We're going to follow in which case I'm going to be getting out of her way, and we're going to try and show you what we've been sitting here the whole afternoon for.
I mean, I can't see the carcass from the road now, but I know where it was.
Okay.
So
Good.
I'll show you where it is, and then up to you.
Yes, please. All right. So we're going to move out of Diana's way. As so often happens, what she's just told me is that the carcass has been pulled so deep into the leaves that she can't even see it, and she knows exactly where it is. So I don't feel that bad, actually, to be honest. If she can't even see it and she knows where it is, no wonder I couldn't find it. But it definitely doesn't do my ego any good that a lady found a carcass I haven't been able to find for the whole drive. And I'm not being chauvinist there, it's just my natural competitive self coming out. Diana is a very, very skilled guide, a highly qualified guide, and a highly qualified tracker as well. She's actually more qualified than what I am in tracking. So let's go and see. Now, no wonder I didn't really see where this carcass was. It seems to be a little bit further away from where we were looking, where these vultures were roosting. But literally right in front of us, Diana has stopped, and it looks like they are busy looking over to the left-hand side, exactly where we were listening to the Franklin giving alarm calls just now. So for those of you who have been with me for a while, it is exactly where we saw the Franklin giving an alarm call. I didn't see anything then, I don't see anything now, but that doesn't mean anything. So I'm just going to stop here and find out exactly what the story is. And if there's a leopard lying right here where the Franklin was, I'm definitely going to be deflated.
I can't see anything, but earlier today we had 2 vultures in the street, and when we drove in, we had under that russet, there was a chicken carcass
Okay.
at the back there, but I can't see it anymore.
Okay.
And there's of course the drainage behind it, so I think it pulled it.
Into the drainage.
I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, I literally stopped here 5 minutes ago to Franklin giving big alarm calls just here. So.
Oh, okay.
So it was too dark for me to walk in, of course, at the time. But yo, literally the Franklin was just the other side of this bush. I was parked 1 meter behind where I am now. So we're going to stick around. We've been looking for whatever it is here the whole afternoon. So I definitely want to see if I can see this.
I think it's been quite skittish, but I don't know.
Good.
Nothing back here.
You superheroes. No, nothing.
If you do see it, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'm going to go to that other carcass.
Good. Good luck. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for the heads up. You know, that's why we've got teams out here. Well, Diana just let me know that when we were busy listening to the Franklin giving alarm call, exactly where the Franklin was giving alarm call, there was a kudu carcass that they tracked to here. Not quite where I was walking around, a little bit earlier, but no wonder. But there's no real trees close by to here where vultures could land and could roost. And so the vultures are a little bit further away, and that's why they keep on coming back, is that they know that there's a kudu carcass here. So you're going to give us just some time, if you don't mind, just to try and see what's inside there. We just had a look with the spotlight. Now, I can't see it from the road. It's in quite thick bush, and if it's a skittish leopard, the leopard might have pulled it into the drainage line off on our right-hand side. So I'm going to get my spotlight out, and we are going to be driving in here into the bush and see if we can see it, and using the maneuverability of these cool little bush cars that we have. So I'm just using the spotlight now just to check what we've got. Got nothing in the tree that I can see. Got nothing on top of the termite mound that I can see. Let's go and give it a bash. So I'm looking for the reflection of an eye, which will give us the whereabouts of anything. I'm also looking for any anomalies which would not be bush-like. It might sound a bit weird thinking that we're driving around in the bush over here and what could be, there's anomalies everywhere, but something that doesn't look like a bush is what we're looking for. determining where we can and where we can't drive from an ecologically sensitive point of view. And the bushes that we're driving next to right now are common spike thorns and a Dicrostachys here. Nothing that is able to handle a little bit of driving. We're going to be driving. Oh, it's going to be very sore. Big thorn about to shoot into my face here. We're just going to reverse out of this one before I get poked in the face. Potentially just put the middle of the car over the bushes. Looks a bit thick and dangerous, but it's not really. Don't worry about me. Still can't see anything. That doesn't really mean too much. Sounds what it is, don't worry. See, buffalo have been through here where we're going at the moment. Now leopards typically will hide their kills when they feel that they might lose their kill. And in this opportunity, to hide her kill or to hide his kill in an area that offered some protection. So they don't want to lose as much as we don't want to lose our dinner. Ah, there we go. Can you see, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we've got is I can actually see this kudu kill, and no wonder we battled so much to see it. It's in a very thick area, and I actually think that Franklin was scared by this leopard. I can see a leopard. There we go. Ha! We've got a leopard on a kudu kill. There we go. Big male leopard. Now I'm going to try and, I don't think there's a better place here. Can you see him, Andrew?
Yeah, we're quite good here through a little gap.
Okay. So all our hard work paid off, everybody. We got a leopard on a kill, and I literally was walking around right here. So this leopard didn't move this kill because of us. He's moved the kill because the bush affords him the opportunity of hiding the kill from other predators. Now, unfortunately, he was already caught out by the vultures, which is why they're in this area. But definitely being where he is at the moment is helping him from alerting other vultures to it. Now, he's a big tom leopard. I'm not sure which cat it actually is. Perhaps if he looks up again, one of you might help us with a screenshot. He's just very obscured from where I'm sitting at the moment, so I can't really see it. But a full-grown male leopard on a full-grown kudu kill. Quite well within their range. A little bit heavy for him, but...
Should we try for a better gap, maybe?
Yeah, I was thinking through this. So we're just going to try and reposition this car. So if you just bear with us while we just move the vehicle, it might get a little bit shaky. We're going to reposition quickly, and we're going to see if we can get you a... Now, while Andrew and I try and get into a better position here for you, what we're going to do is let Jamie show you what's happening at that lion kill, and as soon as we're ready, we'll give you an update, see if we can get a better position here. So enjoy the lions while myself and Andrew try and squash into a gap here.
So guys, welcome back. I hear that Steph's persistence and listening to the bush and following the signs of the bush has paid off, and that you guys have seen a leopard on a kudu kill. So, from leopards to lions, just goes to show how listening and having some serious patience and listening to the bush, reading the signs, and of course that's what Steph is so brilliant at with all of his years of experience, and the experience has paid off, and we've got a leopard on a kudu kill. So, as you guys can see, these guys are still having a go at feeding despite the full bellies, and they'll do this intermittently throughout the next 2 days. They'll go and rest for a while, digest a little bit, and then come back and snack a bit more. So, Karen in Oregon, welcome to the Sunset Drive. It's great to have you, and I hope that you're having a fantastic time. Now, Karen would like to know if this particular kill was witnessed by the WildEarth team. Not this one in particular. In fact, this apparently came as a complete surprise to Brent this morning. He'd already encountered the Styx Pride, and they'd crossed south across our boundaries, and he was looking around for lion tracks, hadn't seen any tracks coming into the area, and he just happened to come upon this kill. The buffalo was already killed, the lions were feeding, totally unexpectedly, right out in the open. So this was a chance sighting. It was not witnessed by the WildEarth crew, though I'm sure, Karen, you may be aware that last week they did manage to catch a kill from the chase and from the stalk and the chase right to the feeding on the buffalo. That happened last week, but no, this particular buffalo had already been killed by the time it was found. Just giving a very strong tug. So you can see now she's actually, I'm not sure if this is the same lioness feeding as we saw earlier, but she's actually gone for a separate part of the carcass, now tucking into the front part. And the rest of the pride are all around here somewhere. Most of them, Junior's still lying where we left him. Flat cat, paws in the air. But the rest of the pride are sort of also all spread out in various places, flopped down and just digesting that heavy meal. A very interesting question here, and we can have a look. Maybe if we just move down a little bit from where she's eating. Gail would like to know why it is that the jaw has actually been one of the first things that was eaten and cleaned up, when you wouldn't really expect it, because there's not much, she wouldn't expect there to be much meat around there. Well, there is still a fair amount, but my suspicion would also be that some of the smaller adults, maybe the sub-adult females, who wouldn't necessarily be able to manhandle their way into the sort of the best part of the kill, they would have nibbled on the outskirts. And bear in mind that buffalo are ruminants, so they have 4 different stomachs and they have to chew the cud. So there's quite a significant amount of muscle mass, more than you'd maybe expect around the jaw. So it makes a nice starting point for when you're a smaller lion and you can't quite get into the best part of the kill, then you can be on the outskirts and nibble away at the jaw. It is also probably because when it was killed, it might also have been already where the wounds were from the hunt, and just made it a little bit easier to tuck in there and get into that particular section. So I think that Cecilia has summed up this afternoon perfectly, from a delicious buffalo to a delicious kudu kill off with Steph. And yes, it has been an absolute treat. Cecilia, you are correct. We've had a wonderful afternoon and I have so enjoyed being out here with you. But for now, we're actually going to cut across to Steph, who has repositioned and just to get a better look at this leopard. And I'm sure you guys are all excited to find out if we can see who it is. So enjoy that. I'll be back with you guys shortly.
Well, how was that? Coming from a lion, Africa's largest carnivore, to a leopard, one of Africa's most elusive carnivores, straight after dinner. Now, for those of you who are adept at identifying leopard, this is a full-grown male leopard. Myself and Andrew think that this is Mvula, and he's lying up just next to the carcass. We've managed to squeeze in and have quite a nice view of him right now. He's busy licking the blood and the hair off of his... Have a look at that dewlap. Enormous male leopard. He's just busy licking the blood off of his paws and off of his face from feeding. He's probably lying about 15 feet away from the kill, quite typical of leopard. And we are right downwind lying about of this kill feet away from the kill. I must tell you that it's definitely a fresh kill. All we're smelling, or I'm smelling at the moment, is tummy contents. And unless this cat is very lucky, I got a feeling he'll probably lose this kill tonight to some hyena. There's some trees around where we are at the moment, so there's a good chance that he hoists what's left of the kudu if he eats a little bit more. At the moment, the carcass is even too big for him to drag into a tree, and he might just actually give it up rather than risk injury. But who knows? A big male leopard like this, I've seen them fight off hyenas, 2 or 3 hyenas in actual fact. And even if they lose the carcass, I've seen them fight the hyenas off of what's left, the scraps, and salvage some for later. But what a fantastic afternoon. We came here, the bush was alive, we saw some vultures, we didn't know what was going on, squirrels calling, vultures returning to the place. I walked and checked every bush. I even stood right here. He was probably watching me, but this kudu was so well camouflaged underneath the bushes that he managed to even keep it away from my prying eyes. And it took Diana, who had seen vultures in the tree earlier on today and saw the kudu carcass lying right underneath the tree, to say that we should maybe perhaps stick our faces in here. And after a little bit of investigation, we found the kudu had been dragged into some thick bush, and all of a sudden, from behind the carcass, stood this magnificent man. Now, for those of you new to the show, to identify leopard, you use the spot patterns on their face. Traditionally, the spot patterns underneath their eyes and on their forehead between their eyes, and then their general impression of size and shape. So the 2 huge male leopards that we have in this area, or the 2 dominant male leopards that we have in this area, are Tingana and Mvula. We think this is Tingana. And why not another big male leopard of this size? Leopard are territorial, and they actually fight over territory. Now, the territory is made up of 2 portions, a core territory and a home range. The core territory will sometimes even be defended to death, and the home range is like the skin of an amoeba. It changes, and it changes shape, and it changes form, even daily, depending on what leopard are moving through the area. But this will, I don't know if this is in Mvula's core territory. You see Tingana in this particular drainage line, and you see Mvula in this drainage line. So I think there's a slight overlap of home ranges where we are. He was walking through the area, got an opportunity to hunt a female kudu, and brought down a female kudu. So full-grown female kudu, we're looking at about 110 to 140 kilogram kudu, and he managed to kill that kudu all on his own, weighing in probably around about 70 to 80 kilograms. So that's 160 to 170 pound cat taking down a 220 pound kudu. Georgianne and Christine have actually told me that this is Tingana, and they're basing that assumption on the fact that Mvula has much more tatty ears. So based on what they know of these cats, and our long-term viewers have got very extensive databases of these cats, they've ID'd this as Tingana. Something has disturbed him, and he's now moving off into some thicker bush out of actually your sight at the moment, out of my sight. He might actually go for some water. I think let's go up onto the road and let's go see if he comes out on the road. He looks like he was going from one place to another. Let's get onto the road so we don't lose him. You'll just have to excuse me while we try and get out of this very thick bush. It's going to be a bit bumpy and a bit scratchy. And I think while we do that, you're going to enjoy Jamie, who's in not as thick bush, and we'll come back to you as soon as we have an update. So enjoy the lions.
So guys, welcome back to us. Isn't that fantastic news? Steph got his leopard in the end. Very, very happy for him and for you guys. And I'm really looking forward to finding out exactly which leopard he's been spending some time with. I'm always keen to learn about new animals in the area. And I really cannot begin to think of a better way to finish my first official sunset drive than sitting with this glorious lioness, properly tucking into her meal and enjoying the evening sky. Winter sunsets are always spectacular, and as the temperature drops, we know that it's going to be a good evening with some well-fed lions and at least one very well-fed leopard. So exciting stuff there. I would just like to extend my warmest thanks to all of the people who have said hello to me and welcomed me. It comes as such a nice not surprise, but it comes as such a nice treat to know that the Wild Earth audiences are such a warm and receptive group of people. So I hope you guys stick with me. I'm very excited about this new venture, and I'm very much enjoying looking and learning about all of this new stuff. And I hope that many of you will stick with us and watch me and grow with me as I enjoy this new journey. And hopefully Steph and I have kept you guys entertained while Brent and Scott and Nikki are off on leave, having a good holiday and a well-deserved one. Possibly one of them with my cap, but that's to be addressed at a later stage. So once again, started out the afternoon with these lions, and with Steph teaching you all about alarm calls and the various signs and calls of the bush. Always interesting, and I hope that with some fresh faces, maybe we bring a different approach, or at the very least some different information for you guys, maybe a new perspective on the whole thing. And she really is a beautiful lioness. So guys, I'd like to once again say a big thank you for all joining me on my first official sunset drive. I'm really, really looking forward to the future and learning about this and enjoying the time that I get to spend out here experiencing a new area. I really am brimming with excitement, and I'm very, very keen to share this whole journey with you. So thank you guys, and I hope that you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, or a wonderful evening. And it is very exciting. I'm looking forward to the next few days of learning new roads and new experiences and new animals, and hopefully as soon as possible get some walking going. As I know the area a little bit better, we can get out on foot and really start to get into the nitty-gritty details of things. I'd just like to extend a huge thank you to Jandre and the team at Wild Earth, and to Tara in FC, just for being really helpful and welcoming on my first few days. I'm very excited to be a part of such a wonderful team doing such an interesting and different job. So thank you guys, and in a moment, I'm going to pass you off onto Steph, who is attempting to relocate that leopard. I'm not sure if he's got it yet, but we'll just have to wait and see. So enjoy. Thank you guys. Bye-bye. I will see you for the sunrise safari tomorrow morning.
Well, welcome back to myself and Andrew, and what a crack of an afternoon, where we literally didn't even do 2 roads this afternoon. We knew there was something here, and in the end we managed to, with the help of a colleague at least anyway, find Tingana lying on a kudu kill. I mean, how fantastic is that? Shows you perseverance pays off. And I mean, I must say, Tingana got up off of that kudu. He's walked away now into that thick bush. We haven't been able to relocate, but we'll definitely come and try again tomorrow morning. So I must be honest, what a beautiful evening. It's nice and cool. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. I hope tomorrow morning isn't going to be too cold. I'm looking forward to seeing what happened over the night. Let's hope that he manages to hold on to his kill tonight and it doesn't get stolen by those hyena, even though I'm sure that those cubs could do with mommy having a good feed. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you for the help with the vulture questions, and we'll definitely see you tomorrow.